All right. So we're going to introduce our guests, our speakers today, or our volunteers today, and then we're going to do the attendance quiz. So let's start over here.
Hi, my name is Vivian. I'm a freshman.
Yo, you're a freshman? Dang. All right. And Mark, I want to make sure I ask you some really tough questions. All right. All right.
Hi, my name is Nigella. I'm a junior in biomedical health. I'm from New York, but I was born in the Philippines.
We're in the Philippines?
Quezon City.
And you speak Tagalog?
Yeah,
Really?
I also speak Tagalog, kind of more soon.
Yeah. That's cool, man. Do you have a favorite Tagalog word?
I can't say it.
Oh, you can't say it?
I mean,
you
it means the same thing in Spanish, if that's a clue.
Well, all right. Is
There's
it a word
lot.
I probably use a lot in
Probably.
Spanish? Okay.
My name is Jaron. I'm a second year studying aerospace engineering from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Were you from North Carolina?
Yeah.
Dude, what are you doing up here, man?
We're from the same area.
Oh, same area? What are you guys doing up here? In the cold and stuff?
I like it. So
You like it?
Yeah.
All right, man. Okay. All right, so listen. They're all in the class. So we have a really special opportunity today because you will notice these three folks, they look much older than those three folks over there because they are. And these are three former TAs of mine, and in fact, who go back a long way. Well, hang on. Why don't you introduce yourselves and say when you graduated, maybe?
My name's Brian Ellis. I graduated in 2002. I was with Sam when we were upstairs, and you had the long hair.
Yeah.
I'm a vice president and associate general counsel at Fidelity Investments.
All right.
My name is Lisa Dribbin, and I graduated in 1992, and I work for World in Conversation, which, as you know, is connected to Penn State, and we produce your dialogues.
And you were a history teacher for
I was a history teacher for 20 years.
20 years.
Prior, yeah.
My name is Randy Schultz. I'm 46 years old and clearly on the old side of the stage. And I guess I made the mistake of telling Sam I was coming to visit Penn State and find myself here ready to do whatever it is we're about to do.
And when did you take Social 19, do you think?
2001. And
2001?
2002. Yes. 2001.
All right, man. So Lisa, actually, you've been around the longest. Lisa was actually, you were at our wedding. You participated in the wedding. When was that? 93? 93, I think I got married. Damn, that's a long time ago. All right, so listen, we're going to have this, you all are going to have a conversation, the old guard, so to speak, are going to have a conversation with the young guard, and you're going to have an opportunity to ask them questions, and you're going to have an opportunity to ask them questions based on the topic that we're going to talk about. So topic for today is we're going to think about wealth, think about money, which you think about every day, right? We're going to think about money, and we're going to think about wealth, and we're going to think about the rich. And we're going to have a conversation about the rich. So first things, let me go to the next slide. And I put this up several weeks ago. But I just want to remind us all. We're going to talk about the United States mostly today, okay? But I just want to put this up as a reminder because I feel like I want to have you thinking globally, but we're not going to talk so much globally. So this is percentage of adults so what this means is 1% of adults around the world, okay? These are adults. This isn't households. These are adults. 1% of the adults around the world control 46% of the global wealth. So if we take, all of the adults, which is going to be about 6 less than 6 billion people, and we divide up the wealth, and we see how much these people control. The top 1%, they control 46% of all the wealth. And if we add in the next group of adults, and so that means these are people that have $1 million to their name, to their assets, $1 million of assets. Okay, so you take all their assets and you subtract their liabilities, they have $1 million. Okay? All right, man. Then you go down to this other group here, and this is between $100,000 and $1 million. And this includes older people like me and younger adults like you all. Okay? And this is average. So then you add in another 39%. So what that means is about 85%. The wealthiest 12% of people in the world control about 85% of all the wealth in the world. So you just got to hold that. You know, like that's okay. Now, the poorest 55% of the people in the world, by contrast, control 1% of the total wealth in the world. So this is one of those things, like if y'all feel like, anytime you see, feel like I'm not really that rich, I always think about this, and then I realize, oh damn, man, I am so rich. Okay, but we're just gonna hold that in the back of your minds. Okay, let's go to the next slide. U.S. wealth distribution. Let me explain this to you. Right. So the top 10%, the wealthiest 10% of households in the United States control 67% of the wealth. Okay? Now, like given that the two of you, for example, are out of state, you're probably in that group of people, I would guess, right? And the bottom 50%, the poorest 50% of people in the United States control about 3% of the wealth. Okay? You hold it. You hold that. All right, man. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you see that? Whoever wants to go. What's the first thing that comes to mind?
That's a lot of money that, the top 10% control.
And what else? Well, hang on. When you say it's a lot of money, what are you seeing?
Like, they control like a huge percent of the wealth. Like, that's a lot.
67%.
Yeah. 67%.
And what's that? What's it mean? What's it mean? Like, put something. Angela, do you have like sit with that for a second? So it's a lot of money. Okay. What?
I mean, definitely knowing that or being aware that I am in that bottom 50% being controlling only 3% is definitely small compared to the proportion of the top 10% being 67%. I think it's quite unfair, and it's just not very equal in
Okay, so
terms
you
of
feel
sharing.
so one thing that comes to mind for you, the first thing is that it's not fair.
Yeah.
And what's not fair about it?
I mean, the majority of that bottom 50% is the working group, and the top 10 is just all probably millionaires, and they just have control of 67% of the wealth. That's all assets. So.
Well, I should tell you that in the United States, okay, about right at the cusp of 11, and if you could divide the wealthiest people up into 100 different groups, between the 10th and the 11th, somewhere right in there, means that you control about $1 million. You have about $1 million in wealth. Okay, so. Jaron, how about you? What's the first, when you see that, the first thing that comes to mind?
More so the disparities in wealth and how it's spread out and the different social classes, and the big difference from lower and middle to upper is just so vast.
And and for me,
and for
Jaron,
me personally, looking at it, it's kind of wow, how privileged and how blessed I am for my family background to be part of that top 10%.
to be part of that.
Yeah.
How is that to go, like, yeah, all right, to see that and say, like, yeah.
I mean, before this conversation, I didn't really think much of it because it's just a day-to-day thing. And it wasn't until like looking at the numbers and then having that talk with you beforehand, it was just like, wow.
Okay. All right, y'all, who've been out working away, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you see that?
First thing that I think about is the difference in the experience that people have in like just going about their business in the world. Like some people are just really struggling to do the basic daily things, and other people are not struggling to do those basic things. And
Okay, so the first thing is, wow, it's not just the wealth, it's the experience, it's the people's day-to-day experiences and the struggles to survive or making it easy, whatever.
And the last thing I was going to say is this psychological toll I think it takes on people that are struggling to, make ends meet. That kind of thing is a very different experience than the psychological toll of like, what's my ROI on this investment or that, activity.
Dude, like if you were here 20 years ago, sitting right here, you never would have said that. By the way, you never would have said that. Yeah, they're not. This is why the generational differences are really important, because you can't know that. Like you can't know that. Yeah. All right, Lisa.
Well,
and hold the mic
so
pretty
that
close.
good?
Yeah.
I had two thoughts. One was like just sort of like philosophical, like how random it is to where we are born, what we are born into, and how the circumstances that we are born into are so profoundly impactful on where we end up. Not 100%, that's a generalization, but just like the vagaries of where we're born and that impacts. And then I also thought about, I was looking at the three of you and I was thinking about hope and like, how do you garner hopefulness when you are in the very bottom of that? Like how is that, what is the psychological experience of that, of being in that and trying to make it in a world where you are not set up for necessarily success, whether it's educational success or financial success, it doesn't matter. Just the disparities in education systems based on the area that you live and the wealth that is in the area that you live and how that creates people who are at different states of readiness for college or post-high school life.
So right here, the three of you, Nigella, it's Nigella or Nigella? Nigella. So Nigella, you said, "Hey, I am in the bottom 50%." So it's different. So hope. When you say hope, it's like, well, that's different for her than the other two people. Brian, how about what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Alcohol. Your experience with alcohol through time, right? Like if you grew up in a family where there was wine and you had a taste and you understood what it did, you made smarter decisions about it later in life. I think there are folks, if you have $1 million sitting in an investment that pays 7%, that's $70,000 a year. It's just earning itself. And there are folks who, bust their asses to make less than that. And money's
to make a fraction of that.
So like the wealth earns by itself, kind of, like that. Mm-hmm. And that's something that was, and how you use money. I mean, it's folks who just come into money, they spend it before it's gone. But how do you have an experience with money where you're taking care of it, it's taking care of you, it's taking care of your family,
Mm-hmm. So you meet in your job, you meet a lot of people who just know how to make money work for them, man. And money just works for them, and they know it, and they get it, and they just can't even imagine it otherwise.
They can't imagine how somebody can make some of the decisions with money that that are more common, and it's really experience. It's having grown up around that having the advisors, having wealth is access.
Yeah.
Right? Income is not wealth.
Yeah.
So, wealth is built over time, and it gives you access. And folks who, it really is. It's an experience, and it can hurt you just like alcohol could.
Okay. So let me ask you this question. So you go back, you see these three lovely humans here. What do you want to tell them? What would you want to tell them about this? Like, what would you, if you could, just from your experience and...
So just because I have the mic, and then I'll pass. Think about your future. Sounds so corny. Think about your future self, right? Make your future self. If you don't, what you need tomorrow is more important than what you want today. And if we're talking about wealth and we're talking about, building something, if you put $1 away, $10, and just do that, and you'd be surprised how much further ahead you will be than your peers. And it's so easy to start right now.
Yeah, you put like $5 a day. Just $5, let's say $10 a week. By the time you get to my age, you're basically a millionaire. But every little thing that you buy, you go use the machine out there, it's $4, and you go get a bubble tea and it's $7, and it's like, yeah, you just don't do any of that purchasing, you're a millionaire by the time you're old like me. What would you say to them? Like, what would you say to yourself when you were their age?
It's a hard question to answer. I was in a situation where my parents paid for my college. I went to Penn State, in-state, and they were able to afford it. And I always worked part-time in high school, starting 14, always had part-time jobs, but I really wasn't worried about money at your age in that way because my education was covered by my family. So it's a different thing. So I guess I would just say, when you think about, I agree with what Brian said, but also when you think about your career path and the different income points that might lead, that is really important. But I guess, I don't know I left a career where I made a lot more money than I make now. So it feels complicated to just say something about what you can do to secure your particular financial future. I'm thinking in terms of but what are your goals beyond that? And can you find a way to do both? So that you're not just that it's not a black or white thing.
Okay. All right. Bro. Mr. Schultz, listen, what do you think that people don't understand about wealth inequality? What you've seen out in the world? You sort of alluded to it a little bit, but what do you think that people really don't understand?
I'm going to say I also don't understand it because I'm not living in the bottom, economic bracket. So I'm empathetic, I'm sensitive to it, but it's not my lived experience, so I'm not the expert, But what I will say is that you talked a lot about white guilt when I was a student and a TA, and I feel like there's also a warning I would give about wealth guilt. I don't if you have money and you are fortunate enough, I don't think you need to feel bad about it necessarily. I think you should be aware of it and sensitive to the fact that you're privileged and other people aren't, but it's not something to be ashamed of. And I think that's a risk, I think, for people to reject money and that kind of thing. So there's a happy medium.
Yeah, for sure, man. I do see a lot of that, or I see a lot of. Yeah, it's very complex, right? It's very complex when you see the distribution like this. That's so different. We know that people have very, very different experiences. It's hard to not feel some kind of way about it. Hey, so for the three of you, all right. What do you think you don't understand about wealth? What would you like? That's a really hard question. I'm going to ask it and see if you have an answer to it. Okay? What do you not understand about it? You may not have an answer, in which case I'm going to go with a different question.
I feel like my biggest question might be like, how do people accumulate so much in their lifetime? Because I feel like you see a lot of people like it's inheritance or stuff like that, but like the future CEOs, the big business owners, like creating that wealth within such small time, like stamp sort of thing. Like I think it's really interesting to see that kind of growth and like how they do it so fast.
Yeah, how do they do that? Like how does that happen? Yeah, that's a good question. Do you wonder that? Like you? I mean, I was in your shoes once, really. Do you wonder that? Like how that happens? Do you think about it? Do you want to be wealthy?
I don't necessarily want to be like wealthy, like top 10%. I just want to be able to get out of that bottom 50% bracket, because I think like being wealthy, well, I don't really associate it with being kind of boastful or like having that pedestal above everyone else, but I feel like being in a financially stable spot is more like my priority rather than being like top wealthy.
And to what degree, to what degree would you say you're on the path to doing that?
I think I'm on a pretty good degree. I mean, I'm in Penn State. I'm working towards a pretty secure career.
How much concern do you have about maybe not being able to fully get on the path or stay on that path?
I'm not too concerned. I mean, with the job market, it's a little bit concerning, but I feel like getting past because I'm first generation, so getting past what my parents have already done, I've already passed that, so I'm on a pretty good path.
Okay, all right. Here, let me show you some. Do you have an answer by the way on this? Do you have a thought? I'm going to ask you another question, Vivian. Is this okay for you? Like, is this okay? Is this like if you were the queen of the ruler of this nation, would you say like, yeah, no, this is good, I got it?
Obviously, I feel like it's definitely not okay that people are like fighting to survive and fighting to get by. But at the same time, I feel like it's very hard for everyone to be equal, to make a country, like everyone, like to have the same salary. I feel like, isn't that
well, you don't have
very
to go
difficult?
there.
Oh.
You don't have to go to the same. You just have to go like, is that okay?
It's definitely not okay.
And what would you change? How would you change it?
I honestly have no idea how I would change such a like drastic thing.
No, I mean, not like, well, like what would be okay? The top 10% would control what percentage of the wealth? And in your mind, you'd say like, yeah, that makes sense. I got that.
I have no idea what to say for that. It's honestly like, I have no idea.
How about the bottom 50%?
Wait, can you repeat your question for that though?
Yeah, the bottom 50%. In my world, if I were queen of the world, what's the bare minimum, do you think? Like, what would be, like, okay, if the bottom 50% should control X percent of the wealth?
I'm just going to say like maybe a random number, maybe like 20, 25, 30. I have no idea.
What should they be able to do?
I mean, I think they should be able to, pay their bills, afford food. And obviously I feel like it's important to like have extra money to spend on your children, like gifts, clothes. I feel like those are also necessities, and I feel like everyone should, have the opportunity to be able to do that.
At least meet basic needs.
Yeah, of course. But I also think it's important that, if you want to go out and get a latte, you can spend that $8 on a latte. And some people don't ever actually get to be able to do that. I think that's important to mention.
Okay. Hey, just really quickly, we can do this fast, but like, what's not okay about this? Mr. Ellis, do you want to go first? Just kind of quickly, and then I'm going to move to the next slide.
Kurt Vonnegut, wealth redistribution. His comment was, wealth is being redistributed all the time in a way that is strikingly unhelpful. And there's other ways to those who need and from those who can provide, I think is a good mantra.
Yeah, so something. I mean, this is the thing, right? We see this kind of thing. Yo, man, top 10%, 2/3 of the wealth. That is just, we can all, people will be like, well, but what? But what?
Well, but are we going to talk about like the regulations and tax structure that help perpetuate
Well, yeah,
create
no,
that, or is
no,
that
we're not going
what
to
you're
talk
asking?
about that.
Okay.
But the point is, that's all holding it in place.
Yeah.
So the question is just, for you all, having been out in the world, you're working along, you're doing your thing. When you look at that, you see something different than, say, the three of them. Here, let me show you the next slide. All right, go to the next one. All right, so this was the news. I woke up to this news today. All right, Oracle's cutting up to 30,000 employees, jobs, to pay for these AI data centers. Oracle has decided that, man, they are all in 100% on AI, and that means they're going to cut up to 30,000 jobs around the U.S., India, different places, okay? Now, Larry Ellison, by the way, is the guy, see in that bottom slide, you got Elon Musk, Larry Page, Larry Ellison, okay? Larry Ellison has decided that, so he sent an email out, the leadership team of Oracle today, and said, hey, we're restructuring at Oracle. We're one of the largest corporations in the world, and we're restructuring. Things are changing, and you no longer have a job as of today. So go to the office, pick your stuff up, and, we'll be in touch. Larry Ellison's got $252 billion, right? Oracle has money. This is the decision. This is a decision. Right, here we go. So as a you're a freshman in college. How is that? These are just people, man, with the power to move and shake and decide, yeah, we're going to cut 30,000
I think
jobs.
that's a horrible thing. Companies cut people all the time. I mean, when I was, before I was born, my dad got laid off from his job. But, I feel like a lot of that is life. Like, it could happen to me one day. It could happen to anybody in this room one day. And, things like that happen all the time. But 30,000 employees is a huge number for sure. It's a horrible thing, but nobody can control what companies do. And, it could happen to any of us in this room one day. That's why we shouldn't really take anything for granted.
Okay, so for you, when you see that, you read the news, it's like, well, that's just the luck of that's the dice, man. The dice got cast, and this morning those emails went out, and
it's just, sometimes it's just life. You can't control, like especially what Lisa said about how where you're born and what family. Like, you don't pick that. Like, that's just like the luck of the draw. You know what I mean? And I feel like what she said, can apply to a lot of things. Like, you can't control, that stuff.
Oh, okay. Nigella, how about you?
I feel like the whole luck of the draw only accounts for like people that are born into families that are like very rich, like high in poverty. But for companies like Oracle cutting up to 30,000 employees, that's something that can be controlled. So I'm not really sure.
But so you feel a little somehow.
Well, upset, yeah, because that's 30,000 employees that could probably like supply or support about 100,000 families.
Okay, so it's a lot of families.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of communities. These aren't low-end jobs. These are higher. Most of these are all higher-end jobs. And
but again, that could probably only be their source of income. So you never really know.
So this is reshaping the structure of the entire global economy. Once again, we talked about AI a couple weeks ago. We talked about AI, and this is reshaping the structure of the entire economy. Okay, so you're going like, huh. So as a college student, going back to the AI thing, what do you?
I mean, I don't really think it's worth paying all that money for AI when that money can go towards families that are in need or just income in general.
Yeah, but part of all of that is all the things we have, man. This is all the new apps you got on your phones, all the search engines, all of this, all of that, self-driving cars, all of these things. It's all going to make the world a better place. But then you have these consequences.
Yeah, and that could get a lot worse for the future. That could be millions of jobs being taken over by AI, or like to provide for AI.
Okay, all right. So you feel some kind of something. Jaron, how about you, man? How is that?
Personally, I'm not surprised sort of this stuff is happening, because I feel like if you look at it from a business standpoint, if you're able to buy or create a model that does like something that your human counterpart can do for a fraction of the dollars, I feel like it's a smart move. It is a terrible thing. I do believe that instead of just completely cutting off these employees, they should be like retrained into different areas within the company would be a better option, because to add on what they're saying, they are still providing for these families, and it's still like, I feel like it's more human.
Dude, I want to say something to you. That statement you made, that you think maybe they should be retrained for a different job in the company, do you mean like cleaning the floor? Like, what do you mean,
No,
bro?
like something like...
Because the whole point of the company is that it's just like we don't need people anymore because we are now training computers to do all of that. So like, yeah, whatever.
But there still has to be like people to like govern and look over these AI models. I can't, like, a lot of them in like early stages can't fully run by themselves. So it's people that like are like maintenance towards these models, or like making sure that run functionally. Because I feel like to cut off 30,000 people and replace them all with AI with no like human like background or human like checkpoint is just a bad investment.
All right. Okay. It seems like it's questionable. I'm not saying it is, by the way. Like I don't have a dog in this fight at this point. You know, I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Okay, so listen, you all, I want to come back to you all. Like, I see this. I get business. I get the whole 9 yards, right? But you've been around long enough to know that at some level we're all in this together too. So how are you seeing that?
Well, it makes me like wonder about like everybody in the room and everybody who's a college student right now, and like how it affects your thoughts about your career plans and your career path and your major, with all the uncertainty about how this is going to shake down in the economy. And I'm a parent. It makes me wonder like how strategic does my son have to be about picking his career, because it used to be like when we went to college, like we picked something we wanted to study, and usually, hopefully, there were jobs in that kind of field. But I was never worried that, like, if I went this route, that all of a sudden those jobs would disappear.
No, the entire field is gone.
Yeah.
Dude, your son, just be a plumber, man. Plumber is good.
That
We're
actually
always
will
going to
be
be
good.
eating and pooping, and it's like, yep, clogging up drains, whatever. Bro, when you see this, right, and you think about the world, and building a world, and you're participating in building a world, man. What?
Well,
yeah, what do you see?
So what I think about is that Oracle is a publicly traded company with millions of shareholders, and that an adjustment to their employee base may boost their stock, which may have an overall more positive impact on more people.
Wait, can you go back one slide? Yeah, like, bro, right here, that means that these people actually will get wealthier.
Well, retirement accounts, 401ks, you know, Oracle is a very highly invested stock. I mean, it impacts. So there's, you know, and these employees, you're an employee at will most of the time. You know, you could be fired for any reason as long as it's not, you know, for an unlawful reason. But generally, that's part of the deal, right? And these folks they may be let go, but they often receive 3 months of pay or placement assistance, and they take their skills with them. Many of the times, these employees got their skills while they were employed with the company, so they don't walk away with nothing.
All right, let me ask you this question.
Would I have said that when not even a chance? Not
Dude,
even a chance.
Listen, if we go back 20 years, 21 years, you were sitting here, you never would have said that.
No, it's the worst thing that can. I mean, you see, it's the nuance of it, and clearly, like.
And what would you have said? To go back 20 years ago.
I don't think I
you're
can
sitting
say
right
that the words, because there's cameras now in this room, but and live stream. But I would be really upset, and I would say like those people who are sucking that company dry to line their own pockets. You know.
This guy right here, man.
So there's, pragmatically speaking, right? you can understand it wasn't just Larry Ellison, it was the board of directors, it was the management of the different units that were deciding which. So it's when organization, like Mitt Romney said, corporations are people too, and when they start taking from actual people, I think you just have to think about it. You have to reevaluate that. And, you know, there is if they weren't a public company and there weren't public shareholders that were being, you know, we need that stock to go up, or we need, like, it's a different conversation. Private companies can do. Yeah.
Okay, Randy, I have a question for you. If you could take yourself back 20 years and you were sitting right here where Vivian's sitting, what would you have said? Guy, one of the wealthiest human beings in the world, you know, has somebody. You can see it's a group of people, but let's just focus on him for a second, right? Just hit the send button, boom. And it's not just Oracle, by the way. It's one and then another and another and another, and it's like, okay. And this, can you go back one slide? The top 10 control about 67% of the wealth. So in a few years, the 67 is going to go to 70. And it's predicted to go to 73. And then 74. And you're going to be lucky if you all get onto the train a little bit, that you can get some money into the market and get moving along. But like, at what point in time is it just like, this is a problem? So I want to ask you, so you're sitting 25 years ago, what would you have said?
I mean, I'll go back to part of what I said before and like flip the script a little bit, where Larry Ellison, yes, is responsible largely. There are other people that help make that decision. But I mean, he might have really been torn about that. That might have been a really hard decition for him. It might have been. There's nuance to that.
Dude, would you have said that 25 years ago?
I would not.
What would you have said?
I would have said down with the system.
You'd have had a few choice 4-letter words probably.
Yeah. But my
well,
kids
what
are
happened
here.
to you? What happened to you? What happened to you in the 25 years?
So you know, just to the point about what would I say to like younger students is, I mean, I'm self-employed and I struggled for a pretty long time to make my business successful, and I would say that make yourself somehow self-employed. I mean, like, even if it's like the gig economy kind of mentality, because like whether we like it or not, you're dispensable, and it's terrible, but it's the truth.
So you have come to accept because you're a dude with I remember you always as having a really big heart, okay, and so somehow you've come to terms with, well, it's kind of what it is. Like, you've lived now enough years have gone by, enough decades. It's like, yeah, that's just kind of how we are, man. Do the best.
I mean, no, you can still be pissed about it. Don't get me wrong.
No.
I mean, you can still be pissed about it, but like you have to operate within. You know, you have to find your own path, and being bitter about what it is like a fine starting point in terms of motivating yourself, but like you can't stop there. No,
but I don't think you need to be pissed about. I mean, I don't know. Like, you were living life, man. This is life. You kind of. Lisa said it. You've all said it. It's the dice. You cast the die, and here you are. And like, okay, whatever. I'm not thinking you need to be pissed about it. I'm just really struck by. If I go back 25 years. And we have this conversation in this classroom in a different era, in a different time. And I'm not talking about people like Takeem in the classroom. I'm talking about the general perception of the vast majority of students who are here, that you are not saying, yeah, this is just kind of how it is, and like, oh, there you go. Well, you know, it's luck. It's this. It's like, well, I hope I don't get caught up in it. I hope I don't get screwed. I hope whatever. The general tenor of the vast majority of students in this room is like, fuck this, man. Like, that's bullshit. Like, no, we need to change the system. This is bullshit, right? And we'd be passing the mic around the room, and you all would be just like one after another, just coming out with some critique of not just capitalism per se, but critique of just this inequity, the inequality, just this really serious, intense inequality. And you'd be passing the mic around and you'd be going, yeah, okay. So what happens? You know, what happened? Do you feel like you guys got smarter? Seeing the nuance?
I don't think. I think I'm not smarter, but I have like years of I've lived. So when you live, you learn things. But I think something shifts, and I'm sitting here trying to figure out, well, what did shift? Because when I was on the other end, when I was a teaching assistant in a room like this, I would not have been okay with that. And I'm not okay with it now, but like the depth of my being cannot get as upset about it, and I don't know why. Maybe it's like something shifts as like you move into adulthood and the responsibilities that come with it. And like maybe you buy a house or you have a car payment, and then maybe you have a child, and then maybe time's ticking and all of a sudden you're 30 and then you're 40 and then you're 55 and don't know how.
And nothing has
not
changed.
Speaking about myself, and like you get different about, like, say you come back to like safety and security, but in a different way, like maybe a more selfish way, but not intentionally, just around like trying to like safeguard yourself, your children. I don't know, something does shift.
Yeah, well, it gets harder. You know, like I said, for example, you don't have to be pissed. Like, that's just what it is, man. This is life. We're gonna die. It's gonna be over. We're gonna move on. I want to ask a question to the three of you. Do you have any radical left, like we need to destroy the system and rebuild it? Do you have any friends who are like that at all? Who look at this and be like, that's why we got to destroy capitalism and that's why we got to change it all? Do any of you have friends like that?
I might have a couple that agree strongly with that, just from the standpoint of like considering their background as well too. Like some of the stuff you said, I can really relate to a few of my friends sharing the same opinion, because like at first coming here, like with my friend group and like some of our social class, like going back to like their house or like they're visiting me, you can see the difference. But it's always been like, it's never been kind of that extreme until you get like that deep involved.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Do you have any friends who are poor? Whose parents are like janitors, let's say?
Probably not to that extent, just considering the area I'm from, but I have like close family members that are in that situation.
Okay, but you don't have any friends?
No.
Do you have any friends who are poor? I mean, poor, like really struggling.
Not to the like janitor extent, but back in high school, I'm still friends with her. She was an immigrant, and she came here, and she honestly did not have that much, but she never had that like ideology to change the whole system. She saw it as a chance to work incredibly hard to, get to where she wants to be, and that's what her plan is.
So like Nigella and like your mom, I'm gonna assume your mom is just like, is she? How many friends do you have who are poor?
Maybe like a couple back home, and like some that I'm like acquaintances with, but not really like close friends that are like extremely like poor.
How many people do you guys hang out with? I mean, intimately hang out with who are poor? I mean, like really pretty poor.
Several. I walk around Morristown, New Jersey a lot, and I stop and I've gotten to know some people, and there's a mission across Market Street. I think it's important. I think it's important to go out into the world and understand people's experience.
But for you, you're not tapped into that.
Personally, I mean, I it's taken a long time, and I think you put a lot of effort into things, but you never forget.
Okay, yeah. Dude, and all three of you work hard, man. How about you?
So I'll say that my wife and I consciously decided to live in the city. So we live in Center City, Philadelphia. And what's interesting about that is that it's like pretty much house by house determines like income level. So, or block by block in many cases. So, first of all, like the proximity to people who are in various states of well-being, you're like, there's a shelter, next to my kid's school kind of a thing. And like the folks that wander the streets are, I interact with them and occasionally give them a couple bucks or like, an RX bar out of my bag or something.
So it's on your mind. You're thinking about it.
Yeah. I mean, so it's definitely a part of our, conscious effort to like not pretend that doesn't exist, but to engage it on some level.
Okay. Do you have any questions for them? Well, go ahead first.
I just want to say something real quick. My dad always said, if you are going out to eat in a restaurant and you can't afford to tip, you should not be going out to eat in the restaurant. Because I do think it's important. I'm always a generous tipper, and so is my family, because you don't know where everyone's at. You don't know where they come from. So we always make a very conscious effort to tip.
So for you, tipping is an example of seeing yourself as part of a larger community.
Because I personally, I rather give food to those on the street instead of money, because I don't know what they're going to do with that money. But
don't think homeless. I just think working poor.
Working poor?
Working poor. I mean, people who are just, look, for example, the people that clean this room. Do y'all know, like, the people that clean this room, they will come in here at night and clean up after you. So, you can spill stuff and you can, whatever. They'll clean it up so the next day it's not there. They're not going to they don't make $30,000, man. And they don't live in State College. You think like all these people are wealthy and so on? Like Jaron, for example, right? You're from North Carolina, so you come up here and you just see all this. No, man. These are people, they're living outside of State College. It's a very different world. And so this is what I mean. Like folks like this, you go to their homes, you see how they're living, you see how things are. Yes. So you don't have that?
No, I always make, like, the janitors on, like, I live in Tenor Hall, which is, like, in East, and I always see, like, the people, cleaning, and I always talk to them, because, like, I see them just as me. Like, I see them as human, too, and I'm not going to treat them differently because, they're cleaning my bathroom. No, I'm going to treat them with respect, because they're human, too. Like, during the Christmas holidays, I actually wrote the people who clean my floor a letter, like, Merry Christmas, because I'm sure they don't get that from a bunch of other people.
That's cool.
But, my sister does the same thing at her college, too, so
right. Okay.
I, treat them as human. I mean, why wouldn't you?
That's fair. That's cool. Look, I'm not, and by the way, I'm not trying to move anyone in some direction. I'm just trying to say it like, can we go one more? Can we go one and then one more? Okay. This is just another way to cut it up, and I do this just to see if you do any of you have any questions for them?
I do. Lisa, is that your kid? Yes. Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
So, compared to how you were raised within like wealth and stuff, are you thinking about your kids' future within like money and things like that, and like are you raising them differently to how you were raised when it regards to like what you're thinking about their career? Because I remember you mentioned that, and I wanted to know your thoughts on that.
I'm raising him to have financial literacy, and I taught high school for 20 years, and I was really like always bothered by the fact that it wasn't required in the state of Pennsylvania to have some sort of like course or portion of a course absolutely dedicated to financial literacy. It really bothered me because I think young people, if I go back to what I didn't know about managing money, whatever income level you're at, like learning how to manage money. So that bothers me as a society. I feel like it's a shortcoming. But yeah, I do like we talk a lot and he's interested in economics, or he's just got a lot of interest. But yeah, I talk a lot about financial literacy in our house, and our family talks a lot about it too. One second, I just want to say this real quick, because like I came, I can do that, but because I came from poverty on both sides of my family. Like my grandfather had to quit school at age 13 in the Depression to earn money for his family. On one side, on the other side, both my grandparents were immigrants here, coming dirt poor from Eastern Europe. So I guess I think about it in that way.
And they did well.
Well, one grandfather did very well financially for the 13-year-old. The other grandparents struggled their whole life.
But you say that, though, as a person who is highly educated. You have your undergrad degree, you have a master's degree, you taught. Yeah. When I'm talking about the poorest, the working poor, it's not about financial. I mean, it's not there. It's not part of it. It's a very different kind of story, so to speak, right? And I'm just wondering, Okay. Do you have a question?
So for me, like my background, like my parents grew up poor in Chicago, living in the projects, and like their upbringing now and like how I live today has a big impact on how I am. And so my biggest question is just what like changed or like what flipped the switch to like become who you are today and sort of thing. Because I know like from a lot of backgrounds, especially mine, it's not just an automatic like paycheck or family inheritance.
Do you want to go with that?
Good question, Sharon. I like to learn, and you never know where you're going to go or what's going to interest you or what's going to happen in the world and how that will impact where you're currently, what you're currently working through. Law school made sense. And, there's a ton of industries out there. You all have your majors. There's things that you are interested in, and there's things that you have no interest in at all. And that changes over time. And as you start getting interested in things that you start learning more things, that should never stop. That needs to always kind of stay switched on, because you need to grow and learn and experience as the world does. Like that'd be.
Bro, let me ask you a question. When you see the poorest 60%, the bottom 60% of the Americans are doing 25% of the spending compared to the other number. Is anything like?
Well, it's
because you don't see that, like you don't see it, like right? You're not driving around into all these working poor areas and it's just really engaging and talking to people and seeing it. And
I mean, our economy is driven by people buying stuff and then throwing it away and then buying more stuff.
Yeah.
And I think you see how something that's more expensive may have better material, may last longer. So you could see how maybe there's not as much spending.
For sure. No, you're going to buy a $10,000 watch instead of a $10 watch. And that's a lot of where that comes from. You're going to buy a $100,000 car instead of a $25,000 car, and it's going to last longer. It's all sorts of things.
An inverse of this, though, just for thought, is I think those correlations are similar to the taxes paid. So the wealthy 10% probably pay more taxes than the poorest percentages, based on income.
There's a
and
poor
based on
percentage.
rates.
We don't know where the line is.
It's supposed to be a progressive sort of system where the more you make, the more you pay. But yeah, no, I'm stunned because people spend money. Like your phone is telling you to buy things now. You're asking, and you can't avoid it. And you're told that the more you spend, that's what drives the economy. And if Apple has a new phone or there's a new and if you stop, the economy's in trouble because people are satisfied with what they have.
And if you're not educated about what's going on, you go out and buy the new Apple phone, man, instead of taking that money and buying Oracle stock, because Oracle stock's going to go up, and then you just do all of that. And so you just keep going, and then you just stay in that place. And if you don't, by the way, when I used to teach the race and ethnic, you remember because you TA'd for it, I taught this class in African and African American studies called Race and Ethnic Inequality. It's a 400 level class. I taught it for about 13 years. And at one point, for about half the time, one of the required books that I had was a book on money management and understanding money and understanding how to manage money. And I found the students, look, you want to do something about inequality, learn about money management, man. Learn about what all this stuff is. And that was my take. I mean, that was just my little tiny contribution to the world. I don't know if anyone ever read it, but... Okay, bro, you have a comment? Because then I'm going to go to the next slide.
Just that this feels like straight from the talking points of why the minimum wage needs to be increased. Because if, the lowest earners have more to spend, then these numbers can shift a little bit.
Even though there are problems with doing that. So, like businesses would say like, yeah, that's a problem. But okay, but that's something.
But as a business owner who would be subject to that minimum, we pay well beyond the minimum wage just because it seems like unfathomable to offer someone with the minimum wage.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, do you have a question? Or is there a question from the stream? We can put one up, yeah?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Layla.
So I guess from things that I've heard in this conversation and from wealthy people overall, through time, it seems like they subconsciously associate their success with how far away from the bottom 50% they get and how much effort they put into thinking about the bottom 50% and how much they put into helping. So I guess my question with that is, at what point in becoming so wealthy do you find yourself thinking about it less and less, and how do you mark the start of giving back to that bottom 50%?
How about your parents? How often are they talking about when they used to be poor?
I feel like it's just a constant reminder that for them it was hard work and dedication, so that background, and then just reminding me that all this is what we have can flip in an instant.
So they're constantly hammering you.
Yeah. So back to what Lisa talked about with financial literacy, that was a major part of my parents teaching me understanding that at such an early age, Fidelity investments. I have an investment account, stuff like that. Even the little things we talk about here. I just feel like they're so important because anything can change in a moment. We look at the economy for a day-to-day basis, and then even your financial situation can go up or down, sort of thing. So it's always that constant mentality of being prepared financially as well.
So do you feel, let me ask the three of you, to what degree do your friends, your generation, to what degree are people just accepting or thinking that, you know what? It's kind of the luck of the draw, man. You get in a certain position, you have parents that can pay for your college, or you take loans or whatever, and then it's just up to each individual to do what they can do with that. I'm wondering, because it's a different generation.
Yeah. A lot of my friends, at least the people I surround myself with, are very hardworking individuals, and they look at where they're at now and they want to get more than that. They're so hardworking, and they're not just going to settle for what they have. They want to keep going, and they want to keep going, and they want to keep going. And I think that's very important to have the grit and ambition, because I feel like when you already have everything, a lot of people tend to lack purpose and ambition, and it's important to always have that ambition and grit.
Okay, so can you go back to the slide about you one more? Okay, so listen. Here, this is the top. So look at this. This is the top 0.01% here, right? Is it 01 or 1? The top. All the way to the top is 0.01 right here. This is the fabulously wealthy. Then you got the top 1% right here, okay? So, Vivian, what you're saying here is, see, these people here?
Yes.
They want to work. They're trying to work just as hard as these people in the bottom 50%. There's not stopping them. No. So, when they're climbing this ladder of upward mobility, when you climb this thing and you get up here near the top, you're so let's say this is me. I'm right there in that top 1%, I'm not thinking that, hey, this is good, like I got this. I want to get up here. I want to be in the 1%, so I'm going to keep working hard. And so what happens is then the working poor, the people down here in the 50%, so now we come all the way back here. They're trying to work really hard to get up there, but they got all these other people ahead of them. Mm-hmm. And wealth, Brian, wealth's making wealth. So it's like, yeah, you can, your mom came from the Philippines, right? Okay, so she can start putting money in a retirement account, but that retirement account is like competing with these other folks that have generational wealth in a retirement account, and it's just sort of interesting. Like and that there's no other way to deal with it, just other than to say, just work hard.
Can I offer one other time, right? So the folks, I work with these corporate executives who are constantly stressed and have emails, but they have time outside of work more often than not where they can sit and think and rest. And if they're working hard, they're reading or writing or sending emails. Folks working double shifts at the factories, right, or at the plants who are breaking their back 12-hour shift, like you don't have that time. And as you get older, you don't take your wealth with you, but you can't get your time back.
Okay, but that's not a problem inherently, right? Because earlier we decided, it sounded like, in a way, the three of you kind of agree with the three of them that, well, it's kind of the roll of the dice, man. So, like, you just work hard and you do the best you can. It's what I'm getting.
So, I actually don't agree with that. I know that I said, like, I was thinking philosophically about, like, where we're born and how we can't control the circumstances or the location in which we're born. But when we were walking, I was taking my son to the hub to get lunch, and we were talking about college and college tuition because we're on a campus. And he was asking questions, and I was answering them, and I was thinking about the fact that, like, I was telling him about how the cost of tuition has gone up astronomically more than the cost of wages and income. And so, I would be interested in hearing a little bit more about what you guys think about those structural pieces, because I'm not just okay with it. It is what happens. But
okay, so let me give you an example of that, and then I want to do a question from the stream. This would be interesting for you, okay? When I first started teaching this class, and I wanted to have a conversation about wealth inequality, I always knew I could find poor students in the class. There are poor students, lots of poor students. Right back in when you all were here, I just feel like, hey, I need someone who was raised in a trailer park. I'd be like, okay, hands are going up. I need someone who's just one after another, okay? 2 years ago, I was going to do this thing on wealth and poverty. And I was going around the room trying to find a black student. And I knew not even to ask any Africans because that wasn't going to find. So someone who's African American, all right, who is poor, who's in the lower class. I couldn't find, I bet I asked 40 people, 40 black students till I finally got to someone. I'm like, hey, man. And they were like, oh, yeah, I'm in the lower class. Okay? In the past, that's just part of life. So what you just said right there is that, yeah, because so the people that are going to come to Penn State, you're not coming here if you don't have money. You're from out of state. I know you have money because, whatever. Because we're not giving scholarships out in the same way anymore. So it's like, yeah, that's how it is. So this is separating, you go to Penn State, okay, it separates. And if you don't, then you're going to go somewhere else. And it's just so interesting to see these kinds of changes happening. Does money equal happiness, man? There you go, the three of you, really fast. No. To what degree does money equal happiness? No?
Not necessarily.
No?
Not at all, but it helps be safe and secure.
Yeah. No. Yeah, do you mean enough people that... Wait.
Some of the wealthiest people are the least happy.
Yeah.
You know, and some of the poorest have the
I agree with that. I meet lots of people. Okay. Kamir says, in what ways might someone say it's much better to grow up poor instead of wealthy? Can you answer that?
I mean, I grew up poor. Like, my cousins, they lived on huts built on stilts over water that was, like, infested with filth. So I think, but as long as we had family, I know, like, many wealthy families, there's their parents that are CEOs, they're always working overtime, and the kids are usually, like, babysat, and they never really get that, like, quality time with their parents. But me, I grew up, I feel like I had a lot more, like, happy, like, moments with my family, and even if we were poor, we had basically nothing, we still found ways to kind of provide that happiness.
Okay, so I have a question for you. To what degree is this a thing that people who are poor, to what degree is this a story that you got to tell ourselves in order for us to just make sense of everything that we've seen today? Because you can be poor. I can imagine being poor. And if you go back to the Larry Ellison, whatever it is, just being enraged, man, just enraged. Like, where are the pitchforks, man? At what point in time we're just enraged? But, you know, like, yeah, but you come up with a story. And then people just eat it. Eat themselves.
Yeah, I think it's just that hypothetical question, like, would you rather live poor and, like, very happy, or wealthy and miserable? Because, like, at the end of life, like, you're not going to take all your money with you to the grave, but rather, you know, your memories and happiness.
Well, then I go back. If you go back to the Larry Ellison thing, I see the time. Look, go back one more. Just go back to, you don't have to go there. The Larry Ellison thing, it's like, dude, 30,000 families, man. At what point, where is the, go back one, you know, the Trump tax cuts fundamentally benefited people up here, fundamentally, more than people down here. Didn't benefit these people at all. It's like, where's the, I wonder, as a sociologist, where's the rage, man? Like, what happened? What happened to change things in my time of teaching? When you all were here, there was rage at stuff like this. And now you all are here, I don't see it. It's interesting. Huh.
I just one thing I would say about that is that because everything is so segmented, what we even see and what we're exposed to, it's, you know, like, you don't have to even contemplate.
Yeah, you don't have to contemplate. Yep, I got that. All right, man. Well, listen. Now we're gonna have to. We have to cut. Hey, thanks you all for coming. Yeah. Thank you all for volunteering. All right.